Welcome to the Code Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, because this is where the real talk begins. Cause this is where the real talk begins. Gear up. Cause this is where the real talk begins. Gear up.
What's going on, my peeps? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the car heading out for production night tonight. Let me tell y'all, I'm heading out to production today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited for this one simply because I got a project, something that we are working on that I'm very excited about. Simply because this fall season, let me tell you, this fall season, I think this fall is going to be a great fall where we're going to be rather busy in a good way. We've got an event in October. We've got GGC Athletics. Yes, I'm coming back for GGC Athletics this fall for soccer. And this season starts basketball, so that's going to be exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tonight is very, very monumental for the production side of it. Again, it's the Forsyth Central Bulldogs versus the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets. We're getting ready for second half of football. Sprayberries, Yellow Jackets, 28. Forsyth Central Bulldogs, scoring is 7. Bulldogs have a long way to go here on the second half of tonight's game, but we look forward to see who will come out on top on production tonight. Will it be the Forsyth Central Bulldogs or the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets? On behalf of Code Podcast, we will discuss more on Monday's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, there is the Forsyth Central Bulldogs coming back for the second half, ladies and gentlemen. Now, their score is 7, so we hope that they're able to spring out. And, of course, the visiting team is the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets as they get set for the second half. Now, their score is 28. So, will they be able to keep up that? And, ladies and gentlemen, we head to the fourth and final quarter here at the Forsyth Central Stadium. The Forsyth Central Bulldogs versus the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets. And ladies and gentlemen, there he goes. The first production, Sprayberry Yellow Jackets, Forsyth Central. So ladies and gentlemen, just like that, the game is over, 35-7. 35 leading the Yellow Jackets. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another exciting podcast here today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the Code Podcast ATL, presented by Heard Media and K.L.P. Entertainment. Thank you guys so very much for staying tuned and watching the podcast and watching the episodes of what we got going on in the terms of sports-related news. As you guys might have saw on the thumbnail and the logo that's in the bug that's on screen right now, yes, it is true. We had to change the name up. T and Jackson, they're both here in the studio. We had to change the name up. We did our research, and with any type of research that we do for our shows, the one thing that's hard about it is the title. The title of our show, what we're calling this thing, how we're going to call this thing. And when we first started, I had no idea that there was another Bro Code podcast show out there in the medium. We just thought it was a very catchy name for us, for Atlanta, and we just called it that. So we did our research, and by the grace of God and by the grace of our talented team of K.L.P. Entertainment, there is such a name of Bro Code podcast out there in the media, so we had to change up our name because when we look at the data analytics, we look at the searches that we get for our shows, we don't come up under just Bro Code Podcast as frequently as we would like to. So, of course, when we're changing the name, that's what kind of spins us out with some uniqueness. So we're still calling it the Bro Code Podcast. We just got to add the ATL part of it. And I do like the new logo. It actually does look pretty swanky. So I ain't mad at it. I'm not mad at it. So we just to get you guys ready for the next wave of Bro Code Podcast. Yes, we had to switch the name up for just Bro Code Podcast to Bro Code Podcast ATL. Same name, kind of just adding on the ATL part. Very, very excited for, a lot of things to come when it comes down to our talk show here on the media, and I'm very, very excited to tell you guys and show you guys what's coming up next when it comes down to the limelight of sports on today's episode. If you guys saw the beginning of this episode, yes, that is something else that we're trying, something very new that I'm happy to talk about right now on Bro Code Podcast is, K.L.P. Entertainment, we do this thing where we like to find ways to be more engaging to the community and to be out there in the media. So yes, I was there at the Forsyth Central High School Stadium for a epic first night one of many, many nights of football in high school here in Georgia. Now, if you guys don't know, there is such a great market for high school sports out there in the media. Now, we worked for the NFHS network before. What that network is, you just picture this, guys. That network is the Netflix version of high school Georgia sports, right? All of your favorite Georgia high school teams are on this list, and it's not just about football. It's about basketball. It's about baseball. It's about soccer. It's about volleyball. It's about cross country, lacrosse. They have so many sports on that network for everybody in the state of Georgia, or even if you're out of the state of Georgia and you want to know what we got going on, you guys can take a look at the NFHS network. Again, you have to do a subscription base. Again, it's just $6. You buy that stuff on Netflix every time you do. $6. Sign up for that subscription so that way you guys can see your favorite high school games, whether it's football, because it is football season. Jackson and T, it's football season. I'm very excited for football season. On the professional scale, it's starting now, but also on the college level, college football is here, and of course, high school football is also here. So thank y'all so very much for staying tuned for that kind of content. Again, we were at the Forsyth Central High School Stadium. Of course, it was Forsyth Central. Forsyth Central Bulldogs versus the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets. Now that game. And this is what you're going to expect in Bro Code Podcast. Any high school football I go to, I'm going to do my full take and full review. I have to be unbiased, right? I don't go for a specific type of school, even though I root for both schools. That was a categorized butt whooping, I would say, for the Forsyth Central Bulldogs. Of course, the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets have it at the score of 35-7. Not really a really good game for the Bulldogs of Forsyth Central. I do think they have a lot to learn into this high school space. And I try not to give them so much credit, audience, simply because, this is the first game, right? Their first game in this season. There's a lot of things that they're testing out. There's a lot of things that they're learning to do, right? So I don't want to judge them too harshly. But I have to say, it's the first season. It's the first go round. It's the first of many games for the Forsyth Central Bulldogs. So they do have a lot to learn, right? What I expect for the Bulldogs, again, I'm not catering too much to the Bulldogs team, but when I was there filming, and what we did was we were filming the game. Obviously, we're partnered with the network. Working alongside with Huddle, we're going to be broadcasting and streaming the games as well. And I'm going to give you guys the kind of footage that you saw on our Instagram social media handles and at the beginning of this show to spice up the show. The Bulldogs have a lot to learn, and I don't want to harp on them too much. It's just, it's never a really good setting when you have it to where you're only scoring seven points, 7 goals, 7 touchdowns, and then you have your opposing team doing 35 points in touchdowns. So a lot of things that team has to work out when it comes down to their season. It's always good representing, and it's really good that they get to call themselves the Bulldogs. Obviously, we do have the University of Georgia Bulldogs, the Yellow Jackets. We have Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. So it's very interesting, the high schools are using college mascots as well. I really do root for both the teams. I hope both those teams are very, very excited within their season. Best of luck to the gentlemen on both teams. Honestly, again, I have to remain unbiased towards any type of team because my job is to go to the games, film, broadcast them, and give my own take for you guys on Code Podcast ATL. Very good night. There was a lot of fans over there, despite the footage that y'all saw. Towards the start of the game, people start rolling in. Again, it was Friday night. A lot of these parents do work full time, so it's hard to get to a game right after work and you want to support your son or your daughter that could be on the cheerleading team or somebody that's working the game to be a part of it. And I'm very, very proud to be part of it. I'm very thankful for the NFHS network for allowing us to stream and broadcast their games. We've got many games, high school football games going out. I do believe that we are scheduled for another Friday night game this Friday. Very, very excited for that. This is the new wave of Code Podcast along with our show. Me going to these games, giving you guys my take live and in person in these stadiums. And let me tell you, there's just something about going to a football stadium is quite amazing. Now, I'm not saying that these stadiums are MetLife worthy or Mercedes-Benz stadiums, right? We've been to those stadiums before, but these high school stadiums, some of them are state of the art. This stadium was actually not bad. Great clear weather too. So that's one thing that I look forward to. Is one of those things that I look forward to. A stadium that have state of the art concession stands and the bleachers. And I tell you, because I met another gentleman, his name is Connor Jones. Shout out to Connor Jones on Code Podcast. That's who I will also be working alongside with our football season this season. The fan base is what make the game, right? If you got a son, right? A son or a daughter that's on the cheerleading team, or a son that is on the sidelines, or maybe somebody of your family member that is doing the sports medicine side of these high school football games. And this is just an allegate to everybody out there in the state of Georgia. Again, I like all states, but not all states, but I gotta, because we're catering to the state of Georgia, come out to these games, right? Because the fans is what make the impact of the games, right? The parents, the friends, the family members, the high school clubs, right? They go out to these games and support the school, support the team, and rally with their team. And that's what makes a great football game, high school wise. I've seen it. I've seen it where in college level, shout out to Central Gwinnett High School in Gwinnett County. That's the high school I went to. I'm not shy to say what high school I went to. I went to that high school. Very, very fantastic to have, been going to a football game in my high school days and just to see the impact, right? The different type of clubs that were there, the different type of friends that I went with at these football games. And to really have a great time at these football games and cheer on your team, that is spectacular. And I do encourage a lot of people out there that's listening now, Code Podcast, go out to these games because you never know what fun you might have while going to these games. I've had so many good times in my high school season, my high school days, and now in my college career, my college season at GGC. Shout out to them. I can't wait to see them with basketball. I reposted it on Instagram because, you know, guys, Instagram has that new feature now where you can repost somebody's post. GGC Athletics and GGC, they're gearing up for the basketball season. Very, very excited for that because basketball is one sport that I love filming first and foremost. I'm going to be in the building at the Convocation Center at GGC to help the broadcast for GGC Athletics when it comes down to their basketball season. I look forward to that, but come out to these games. Right, because it's really fun. Basketball is going to be interesting. We've at GCF came to the soccer games; they were always fun. The baseball and softball games are always fun to go to too. So they're growing at GGC. They got something. They're growing that platform with athletics. I look forward to it. You guys know I'm humble with athletics. I've been working for them for over 6 years now. So, you know, it's been one of those things that I've been very, very proud of. But these high school football games is something that you get. And I do say to a lot of people, a lot of high schoolers that are still in high school getting ready to graduate, hold on to the journey of high school because I've had some good moments in high school. I had mostly rough moments in high school personally, but high school is one of those things that you really want to enjoy doing. And just to come out to these games, I'm very, very excited to see what the season has entailed for us. So we're going to be streaming and broadcasting football from the start. And then towards the end of this fall season, we're going to shift gears to basketball. Of course, basketball does start around like October-ish, October all the way up to January if you make it to the conference championships. I look forward to see what these high school teams are with basketball and college level basketball coming up this season. But this past Friday, you saw at the beginning of the intro of the episode today, I was there at Forsyth Central High School. Great turnout, great stream, great everything. And I can't wait to express more what we got for high school. Of course, T, I turn it over to you with the latest news of sports. Take it away, T.
It's hard to beat fantasy football season, but it can also be tough to read every article we publish all summer and retain every name you want to know for each part of your draft. Picking between two running backs? Need to remember the name of that backup running back or rookie receiver. Looking for a dart throw for the end of your draft? We've got you covered to help you stay sharp in your drafts or to enable you to succeed without reading a ton of prep. We present the ultimate ESPN Fantasy Football Cheat Sheet, a curated rundown of all the names we've been talking about this preseason. If you want to read more about these sleepers, busts, rookies, backups, value picks, and more, the analysis is available for you to pour through at the links below or in our Fantasy Football Draft Guide. But if all you want is a cheat sheet, well, it's not actually cheating. As the weather heats up, so does our excitement about the 2025 Fantasy Football Draft season. Whether you play in a casual redraft league, an intense deep dynasty format, or anything in between, we at ESPN Fantasy are here to help. This draft guide will serve as a one-stop shop for all of our best material as you prepare to make the best fantasy football picks possible in every draft you're in. Rankings and cheat sheets, player projections, mock draft for different league types, sleepers, busts and breakouts, and plenty of helpful information and tips from our expert team of fantasy football analysts. It doesn't matter whether you've been doing this for years or are a fantasy first-timer. We have everything needed to help you draft a great team and start the season with a shot at a championship. Fantasy football cheat sheets, projections, and depth charts. We spend a lot of time talking about the best quarterbacks in the NFL, the top 5, top 10 passers in the game, how starters around the league stack up from season to season. But what about how all these QBs rank in specific areas? Who really excels in one aspect of play and stands above the rest in that category? For a second straight year, I ranked the best of the best in 7 different skills: arm strength, ball placement, mechanics, decision-making, pocket presence, rushing ability, and second reaction creativity. These top 10 lists are based on current performance and expectations for the 2025 season. how I would rank the QB group at this moment. I included only starters and leaned on what I see on tape to form the rankings. Let's start with the most powerful arms, but you can jump to any of the other categories below. For me, arm strength is less about airing out the 60-yard pass, though it's of course part of the equation, and more about driving the football on a rope when it's necessary. I'm talking about tight windows, 15 to 20 yards downfield. You need a strong arm to get the ball there on time with these passes. Floating one isn't an option. Think third and 12 dropbacks with defenders blanketing the receiver and the coverage starting to close in. Not every QB has a zip in his arm to pace the ball where it needs to be in a hurry. The best in the game at this is Allen, but the top four on my list, including Mahomes, Herbert, and Jackson, are collectively in a league of their own. Allen connected on 15 tight window throws 10, or more yards downfield last season, tied for the third most in the NFL. 9 of those were at least 20 yards downfield, the most in the league. He can step on one with authority. Another component of being a fastball thrower is having the ability to rely solely on the arm. By that, I mean throwing darts from what I call funny body positions, off-platform, and contorted bases. These are all-or-nothing throws without the benefit of loading up. The top 4 on the list all do this effortlessly, but you'll see plays like that on film from Williams and Love, too. Burrow's arm talent might be overshadowed by his accuracy and pocket presence. More on that in a moment. But he deserves credit in this category, too. He can whip it into the strike zone. Stafford still hits the sideline throws late in his career, and Mayfield can rocket the ball to a receiver perfectly in stride. I included Penix, too. Despite just 3 pro starts to his name, he has a proven arm. He led the FBS with 24 completions of at least 30 air yards in 2023, and then averaged 10.1 air yards per attempt last season with Atlanta, which would have ranked second in the NFL had it qualified. As for the names not mentioned, the obvious exclusion is Anthony Richardson Sr. The third-year Colts quarterback can throttle the ball to every level. But I cut him simply because he hasn't proved he can stick on the field and might not even win the starter's gig. Similarly, Tennessee's Will Levis and Dallas' Joe Milton III are relegated to backup roles. Washington's Jaden Daniels does deserve recognition, but it's really tough to fit every big arm on a top 10 list, and he'll be on plenty of them for other traits here. Accuracy and ball placement aren't the same thing, and when I'm talking about the most important traits in a QB, ball location carries more weight. Can you precisely place the ball no matter the situation? Do you routinely get the completion, even when you shouldn't? Does the ball go to a spot that allows for extra yardage after catch? Accurate QBs put the football where the receiver can make a play, but those with high-end ball placement make sure the receiver is the only one who can make a play. It takes conviction from the signal caller. I think about that scene in Ted Lasso when Ted hits 3 perfect shots on the dartboard. I see that kind of confidence in locating the ball in the 10 quarterbacks listed above. They display the trajectory, touch, anticipation, field vision, and the confidence of knowing exactly where the pass is going. Last year, I put Burrow 1 on this list. He's back in the top spot. In 2024, he had the NFL's lowest off-target rate, 11%, 4th highest completion percentage, 70.6%, and 2nd highest completion rate over expectation, for 0.9% per NFL Next Gen stats. Burrow is the gold standard in this department, and nothing has changed. Interestingly, 2 on my list hadn't even thrown his first NFL pass until last season. Daniel's ball location is already that impressive, with a 69% completion rate as a rookie. He throws away from defenders so well, and I see a real feel for knowing the moment that his receiver's open. It allows him to beat even the most perfect of coverages. Jackson and Allen probably took the biggest leaps in this area last season, and both are firmly in the top 5. I could have gone in a lot of directions with the rest of this list, though 21 quarterbacks completed at least 65% of their passes last season. Tagovailoa nailed down a spot in the top 10 after leading the league in that area, 72.9%. Purdy's completion rate dipped from 68.7% to 65.9% from 2023 to 2024, but he had to be here because of his ability to lay the ball into the strike zone. Smith made it because he has so many perfect throws on tape. He was second to Burrow in off-target rate, 11.2%. But that meant some really accurate passers were left out. Houston's C.J. Stroud, Detroit's Jared Goff. It was tough to exclude them, and I reasonably could see either being decently high on the list. When it comes to mechanics, I'm looking for a smooth and repeatable throwing motion that doesn't change even under pressure. The technically sound quarterbacks always operate from a strong base, and that allows them to stay in rhythm and deliver the ball through the same process, start to finish, even when the pocket isn't clean. Burrow is the epitome of that. You almost can't tell what kind of throw he's making because they all look the same until the release point. It's amazing consistency, and he's still the best in the NFL in this area. Stroud's mechanics really pop on passes over middle. Herbert is basically a robot when it comes to throwing motion. And though Prescott played in only 8 games last season, good mechanics are still the backbone of who he is as a passer. I wanted to get Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts on the list, but ran out of room. He is terrific in this department, and you see it most in the gotta-have-it throws, especially downfield. I spent a lot of time trying to insert Hurts into my top 10, but who would have dropped out? There are 2 levels of sound decision-making. First, does the quarterback make the right choice at the right time when everything is going to plan? Clean pocket, open receiver. Hit him for a completion rather than force a dangerous play. Simple enough, right? Things get more interesting for the other scenario. Though, does a quarterback make the only choice at the right time when everything is breaking down? There isn't much room for mistakes when passers are forced to decide faster than they want. Can he read out the defense, figure out what the opponent is trying to bait him into doing, and then make the correct call? It's the 3rd straight list where I have Burrow no. 1, but Allen and Jackson are on his tail. Allen's decision-making improved last season more than any other NFL quarterback improved in any trait. And Jackson led the league in wide-open target percentage, with 34.4% of his throws targeting receivers with 5 or more yards of separation per NFL Next Gen stats. See the open man, throw to the open man. Burrow, 1.4%, Allen, 1.2%, and Jackson, 0.8%, all ranked in the top 5 in interception rate last season, too. However, the quarterback with the NFL's lowest interception rate at 0.6% and fewest overall picks, 3, was Herbert. He makes smart throws and keeps the ball away from trouble. Daniel's great decision-making helped cover up other rookie learning curves. Tagovailoa has to decide faster than anyone else because of Miami's lackluster offensive line, average of 2.42 seconds before throw, shortest in the league. Hurts' decision-making shows up a lot in his rushing. He knows when to tuck and run and when to find someone coming open for a pass. Stafford, meanwhile, does a great job forcing defenses to do what he wants with his eyes, creating higher percentage plays. And how about Knicks? Broncos coach Sean Payton simplified a lot of the offense of the rookie, but look closer and you'll see that he was still asked to make a lot of tough calls. There is plenty of high-end decision-making on the tape. He found opportunities to pick up chunks of yards through screens, but he located and executed some deep balls. Keep an eye on him in this area in year 2. The biggest snub is easy, Brock Purdy. He was 5th on the list last year. I have no problem with him being on anyone's top 10. I also consider Baker Mayfield because he's still improving in decision-making as he enters his 8th season. But it's hard to ignore his 16 interceptions last season. A 4th straight list led by Burrow. But who is going to argue with me? Burrow is dominant in creating operational space, even when it's a muddy pocket. The top quarterbacks in pocket presence can consistently and calmly slide or climb to avoid pressure. They can use a 6-inch shuffle here and a 6-inch step there to buy extra time and get off a clean throw. No panic, no desperation. Burrow had the league's 4th best QBR from inside the pocket, 71.7, throwing 35 touchdown passes. Last year, I wrote, I don't know that anyone is better than him in the league at working in a phone booth. I still don't. Jackson is 2nd, and he operates in the pocket in a very different, yet equally effective, way. Burrow uses subtle movements, but Jackson is more chaotic, moving all over the place to find space. Both work. Jackson edged Burrow in QBR inside the pocket at 74.9. Mahomes' pocket presence is seemingly on display every snap. He never panics, keeping his eyes downfield as he steps aside from pressure. Purdy is so underrated in this trait, and Smith puts out great tape every Sunday. Young has had plenty of ups and downs over 2 pro seasons, but I still love how he works through pressure and progressions in the pocket. His movements around the pocket and ability to navigate opponent pass rushes were big reasons that he finished 2024 on an upswing. Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert were left off the top 10, but that's no knock on their abilities. They do a really nice job relying on their great mechanics to make things happen in the pocket. Rushing ability is a massive part of the modern NFL quarterback. The best in the game excel here. It can sometimes mean designated carries, and it can sometimes mean scrambles, when it falls on the QB to capitalize on an open seam or turn a busted play into a positive. The top runners of the position show speed, instincts, physicality, and elusiveness, and they routinely get at least 4 to 6 carries called for them per game. I still have Jackson at the top of the list because he is fantastic on called runs and scrambles. Last season, he led quarterbacks in rushing yards, 915, and runs for 10 or more yards, 37. More than a fourth of his 139 carries went for at least 10 yards. Hurts ran for 630 yards and 14 scores, and Allen totaled 531 yards and 12 TDs. I considered putting Daniels on this list last year before he made his NFL debut, and he's now locked into the top 5. His 891 rushing yards ranked second among QBs last season. Murray, who had 572 rushing yards last season, would be higher on the list if not for the really impressive ball carriers ahead of him. Mahomes is still the best scrambler in the NFL, but I want to call out Purdy, Williams, and Herbert, too. Defenses can play these guys perfectly, and it doesn't matter because of what they can do with their legs. The 2 Colts quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson Sr. and Daniel Jones, could each make a strong case to be on here. Richardson can't stay healthy, and I'm not sure who will win Indy's starting job. The ball is snapped, everything breaks down, and the defense wins a play. What happens next? Can the QB still make something happen, even with a called play dead in the water? These are the best of the best in off-schedule and off-platform throws, which often demand non-standard arm angles on the move. It's where a quarterback's creativity can really shine. Jackson and Mahomes are elite on second reaction plays. They remain passers first when it breaks down, dancing for space in the backfield and looking for open targets. But they can also run to threaten the defense at any moment. Jackson's QBR outside the pocket was a league-best 92.7 last season, while Mahomes was 6th at 75.8. Jackson threw 11 touchdown passes with 0 interceptions when forced outside the pocket. For sophomore quarterbacks made my list, which might say something bigger about this new generation. Daniels and Williams have been great here since college. It wasn't the best debut season for Williams, but creating on second reaction plays is still his best trait. If he grows other parts of his game to match his ability here, watch out. Nick surprised a lot of people with his effectiveness in this category in 2024, and I'm watching for May to show what he can do here in 2025. The Patriots would be smart to let May loose on these types of plays, especially because they improved his supporting cast. Having better playmakers means it's more likely someone gets open late in the down. Baker Mayfield could have made the list. I thought about Jacksonville's Trevor Lawrence, maybe Justin Herbert, even Tennessee rookie Cameron Ward. The no one pick this April merited some consideration. The deep pool of playmakers at QB makes putting this list together very difficult. But it also makes watching football very fun on Sundays in the fall.
Now, one characteristic of everybody that I have got in this top 10 is you can make an argument for every single person that they are the greatest of all time at their sport, right? Like that is where everybody in the top 10 got. You can make an argument about Simone Biles that the gap between her and number 2 is as big a gap as there is between number 1 and number 2 of anybody on this list. Right? Like it's absolutely in the cards that you can make that argument. We got some other people that will talk about that. I will tell you on the number one answer why I would not say that about that person. But to me, the reason that Biles is so impressive, and again, it's not like I'm a person with a very sophisticated understanding of gymnastics. I can only tell you but so much. Like, I bristle a bit at the people who talk about Serena Williams in the way that they do, just because if I ask those same people who tell you that Serena Williams is the greatest female athlete ever and ask her why she's better than Steffi Graf, a whole lot of them start stumbling and asking, like, who was that again? You know what I mean? Like, that felt like the sort of thing where you just say it over and over again and people will go along with it. You watch Simone Biles compared to everybody else, and it's like, is this what it was like when Jim Brown was playing? Like, where you look at somebody and they are just that much more physically talented than everybody else. But in the case of Biles, it's one thing to be so physically talented and be so explosive, but then this is a sport where you you can't do that but not have the grace and body control. The game is really grace and body control. So like to do the things that she's capable of doing and then have the crazy body control and just be out there over and over doing things. It's not like she just doing things that other people can't do as well as her. She out here doing stuff that they can't do. Hard stop. Right, and so much of gymnastics is like set up by what you're trying to accomplish. Right. And that's how a lot of scoring is done. That's how a lot of, a lot of your judging against your peers and where she was setting the bar was so, I mean, if a gymnastics fun, but so much higher than everyone else. And she ain't even have to be perfect at it because nobody could come close to Eve. Like doing things that people couldn't even dream of trying to do. Right? There's no need for a gold medal and everything and every time. And you had the thing that happened in Tokyo with the twisties and all of this stuff or whatever. Yeah. It happens, right? But no. As Americans, we watch a lot of gymnastics because it be on the first week of the Olympics and America is good at it, right? That wasn't what was going on here, man. We were watching this because this was greatness. This was something unlike anything. I'm not sure the next time we'll see people who can do the kinds of things that she could do. I don't know if we'll ever see anybody relative to her peers in that sport who would be able to do the sorts of things that she did. And also when you look at the longevity of her, right? Like we're almost like we've talked more about peaks longevity in this list, but you almost have two peaks. Yes, for gymnastics where your careers are so condensed, they're so short, and you have so many people coming up behind you to have the run in 2016 she did and the run in 2024. And honestly, they're talking about her potentially being in some of the teams in 2028, and it's not out of this world that's possible. Yeah, it's just so much better than everyone else. There's a different discussion as to whether it's time to go, get a job, right? So like after a certain point, it's like, wow, look at you with your 4 bachelor's degrees, right? If you like, but it'd be dope on campus, right? Like this, like there's an element of that. And don't forget the thing was she didn't go in 2012 because she was a little bit too young. Right, like one thing about gymnastics and the idea of longevity that has changed is that once they put the minimum age in as 16, because it used to be all those children out there, and children, there's flexibility stuff that you could do when you are a child that you cannot do when you are like an adult. The whole game changed up, and this sort of longevity became more possible at this point. And I guess there's also just more ways for her to make money for being Simone Biles off of this. But nah, she's it. She gets this number 5 proudly. And by the way, H-Town, you know what I'm saying? Like north side suburban, no less. We don't get that many times to shine on people up over there in my part of things. I see Simone. Simone comes in number 5, and now we go to number 4. Tom Brady. Ryan, I don't know about you. I was about to say his full name, but I find few things quite as pretentious than people that got multiple middle names. Yeah, it's a lot. Especially when it's like almost he has 4 first names. Yeah, it's just that's exactly it. It was like Thomas Edward Patrick Brady or Thomas Patrick Edward Brady Jr. Junior, come on, man. I just take, like, it's a lot. Like, how big is your social security card? Is that shit like this? So that you can get everything like one of those big checks. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Ed McMahon gave you your social security card, right? Like, it was really hood. But what makes Tom Brady such an interesting person to put on this list, and you guys know, I value peak over longevity. However, the longevity is so staggering with Brady. And the idea of winning 7 Super Bowls. I mean, what are we talking about here? Scott Kazmar makes a very good point, and he's not wrong, and he lays out a pretty thorough case for Tom Brady as the luckiest quarterback of all time. The Patriots had more horseshoe keister alliance than any other team that you could possibly think of. One thing that is fascinating about all those Super Bowls that they won is how they're all close. Like, I think the biggest point differential on those Super Bowls was the one against the Eagles, and even that I want to say was something like a 10-point game, and the Eagles had a chance to get there at the end of the game. Like, the margins were always so thin on the Patriots, but hey, man, by and large, you could pretty much guess that Tom Brady at the very least wasn't going to mess it up. And if there were plays that needed to be made, there was a good chance that they would be made. And hey, I think that we tend to overrate comebacks. And I think that we ignore the fact that in order for you to have to make a big comeback, you also had to go down a long way. But, and, it was against the Falcons. They were never going to win the Super Bowl anyway. Nothing was going to happen. They could have been up by 100 points. They would have dropped a goddamn rock and jock basket out, and Tom Brady would have threw a bitch through that, and they'd have been scoring 25 points every touchdown, and they'd have won the game too. Like, they were playing the Falcons, but you had to have the steely resolve within yourself to say, we're not out of this yet. We got a chance to go ahead and do it. Patrick Mahomes, most talented quarterback I've ever seen. When the Eagles was whooping that ass, there was not a moment where I thought, all right, now I think the comeback's about to start. I mean, Tom Brady started his career beating Kurt Warner in the Super Bowl and almost ended it by beating Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Correct. This is the kind of longevity we're talking. I remember kind of breaking it down. You could break it down almost having 3 separate Hall of Fame careers. Right. Well, this is what I find interesting about that with Tom Brady. The best version of Tom Brady never won a Super Bowl. Right. The Patriots won those 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, from 01 to 04. Then from 05 to 13, that's 9 years, where they did not win a Super Bowl. Within those 9 years, they had an undefeated season, right? You have that 2011 year, where I want to say Brady has something like 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, where your number one receiver is Julian Edelman. Like, when you look at what the receivers were pre-Moss and post-Moss, and this guy was doing the things that he was doing and putting up the numbers that he was doing. And how was he doing it? By playing exceptionally well and making really good decisions. Yeah, football used to be so much built like outside in, right? You had these, big receivers on the outside. They're cutting in. That's kind of the West Coast offense. And then in that 2011 team with those 2 tight ends when they had Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, and they were able to almost like reinvent the game on the fly just because of Tom Brady had, he had his supercomputer back. Well, that was the thing, right? Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end who ever played, like, hard stop. And Hernandez, look, can't act like it didn't happen, right? Or he never existed. Hernandez as your second tight end was kind of nuts, but we're still talking about the NFL. You're running an offense based on having 2 tight ends. Right? Who can do that with an excellent quarterback like the one that they had, and the one who out there like, hey man, this is how I grind, so this is how we're all going to grind. But if you're to ask somebody what's so good about Tom Brady, is that he's really good. Great. He's here because of execution. And I just can't think of anybody at any sport who was that good at simply executing. Like, what's it like to go in the backyard and pretend to be Tom Brady? You stand real still and be unafraid of somebody hitting you? Right? What is there to mimic? What is there to emulate? And then walked into another team, where he had kind of split the credit for that sort of execution and that will and that, that discipline, and then walked in to Tampa Bay of all places, and then made everyone follow him and won the Super Bowl as soon as he got there. Yes. And it's the overall body of work is so strong that it overcomes my own personal preferences, right? But look, so let's say we talk about peak. Let's put it there. The peak is an undefeated season with 50 touchdown passes. Right. Okay, that's it's poor winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Right. Or having the greatest comeback in football history. Right. But it goes, over and over and over again. We can list it. We can go so many times over. And he earned it, Jack. Like, if you want to get in there and, like, you want to teach your kids about hard work, he really will. I was about to say the training prayers and vitamins, but he out there hanging out with Alex Guerrero. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what the hell they be over there doing with that TB12. They still doing that? You remember when TB12 was going to be the way that he got his money? I don't really hear about that TB12 no more. Guerrero's with the Raiders. Really? Strikes me as Raidery. Yep, he's part of the Brady ownership. I forgot. That's right. Tom Brady's Raiders too. Yep. Okay. Well, they gonna be the most pliable, flexible team in the whole league, apparently. Alex Guerrero gonna come in there and be like, wait till Pete Carroll finds out how Alex Guerrero feels about weightlifting. I think I would love to see those two have a conversation. Yes, sure, they have different standards. I would actually love to see that conversation between Tom Brady and Christian Wilkins. That's the conversation I want. Wow. We'll get back to that. Anyway, number 3. LeBron James. It's going to happen again, Ryan. Yes. Okay, guys. I want to be very honest with you here. It's almost a coin flip for me between number 3 and number 2. Okay? So what I'm not going to do is get here and make the case for why LeBron is not higher. I just want to talk about the greatness of LeBron James, right? And I think I've tried my best on this list to not be at a place where I have to explain to you why it is that somebody isn't or whatever it is to go with the negatives, because this is intended to be a celebration of who the people are. If you weren't really of age in 2003, like, it's one thing to have been a younger person, like in middle school or maybe even high school in 2003. It was another to have been old enough to have a little bit more historical frame of reference. And so I'm 23 when LeBron hits the league. There has never, okay, I don't want to say there never been a player as hyped as LeBron, because that's not true. I was here for the Shaq hype of 1992, for example, right? What made it a little different with LeBron is that with Shaq, he was as big as he was, and we had watched him do it for 3 years in college. There was a bit more of a proof of concept to let us know what was going to happen when he got to the league. And it was immediate. It was instantaneous in a way that with LeBron being 18 years old when he got there, it was not going to be. However, we spoke of what was possible with LeBron in reverential terms that seemed unfair at the time. It seemed preposterous to make an argument that an 18-year-old who was not a center would be one of the upper echelon all-time greats in the NBA. And despite the hiccups, despite the ups and downs of the first 9 years of his career, he managed to exceed all of it. All of it. He did that, right? The thing that I don't think that people who believe LeBron is the greatest player of all time and do not believe that it was Michael Jordan have a tendency to just say that everybody who does this is like some sort of Jordan lover or da-da-da and everything else, and you just refuse to give LeBron credit for anything. No. I don't think you guys get this. LeBron did more than anybody could have ever possibly asked for him to do as an NBA player, right? Even those of us who don't have him as number 1 easily and willingly make this point. Being as good as the Cleveland Cavaliers were with him that first run where you're winning 66 games and your second best player is Mo Williams. What are we talking about here? The Miami version of LeBron, which, hey, If you want to say that the Miami version of LeBron is the best basketball player you've ever seen, I don't really have room to argue with you about that. It was mind-blowing to watch what it was that he was capable of. Winning 3 championships and being a finals MVP on 3 different teams is unreal. The 2016 NBA Finals, the top line stuff on LeBron's resume is so unreal and so incredible that those of us who were here and got to see it are absolutely fortunate, right? The all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA, and most of us do not believe that scoring was the thing that he was best at. He's Wayne Gretzky in that regard. Like every comparison that we make across sports when it comes to LeBron is somebody that's way crazy high in their shit over there too. Like we won getting able to see this and all of these things that we're talking about while he is the combination of the supercomputer brain and maybe being as physically gifted as any basketball player has ever been, while also serving as an unreal, incredible ambassador for the sport. We won having this guy here. He was amazing to watch. We have done all of ourselves a great disservice by locking in so much on the arguments about the best 2 players of all time because, again, it requires you to find ways to diminish somebody as good as him. And look, there are knocks and criticisms that you can make of anybody else, but when that becomes the defining conversation, then much of the conversation becomes defined by talking about what somebody didn't do right or where somebody came up short. In spite of how many examples we have of where this guy came up big, where this dude stood tall, and where this guy exceeded all of these things with the weight of a league and a world on his shoulders. He was incredible. We are lucky to have him here. And he's number 3 on this list, which is an incredibly prestigious honor. Number 2. Eldrick, Tiger Woods. Now, guys, I gotta tell you, I wish I had been a radio host when his career first got started or whatever. I didn't really get it cracking till right before, he got run up on with that, things went sideways with that, yes, this, that is a great way to put it. They went sideways. I will never, well, as I talk about, we should be celebrating people, not talking about the bad stuff. Anyway, I remember that when that report first came out, they said he was seriously injured in a car accident in his driveway. And I was like, you can't go fast enough in your driveway to get seriously injured. Something's going on. And then we found out he got run up on she ran up on him with that iron. But no, not that iron. Yeah. The iron, rather, how about this? An iron rather than that iron. Yes, there we go. That is what happened to him. Man, listen, the reason I am putting Tiger Woods here is this is again a gap discussion. And the gap between Tiger Woods and everybody else in his sport was so vast and so great that I cannot ignore, right? I also have to note about Tiger Woods, and I think that this part gets very, very important. I can't think of anybody else on this list that, Ryan, they did so much to the course at Augusta to stop Tiger from being Tiger, that a course that never had
Okay, so this is the one thing that I wanted to talk about here on the Code Podcast because this is something that's been brewing up in my mind. I saw this happen, and it is one of those things that I might have to rant about on the Code Podcast because this is simply not okay in my book. So you guys know for the past couple of podcast episodes, I've been talking about the WNBA, their season so far. Let me tell you, the ladies, I'm going to say it in every episode, the ladies are giving us a great show for sure. But I gotta go and kind of gripe about this one thing that happened that's been going viral. Of course, I promise you guys I'll get back to my sports analytic part of the show, but I do want to spread the awareness because, we can. This latest trend is not funny. I do find it to be very harassment to our WNBA ladies out there that's really going hard and really doing everything that they can, audience, to give us a great show within their season, right? I have a thing for my ladies, right? There's nothing wrong with having a thing for you ladies. I've said it briefly on the show that some of the WNBA superstars are very beautiful. They're very pretty, along with their game. Their game is very, very magnificent, and they're able to give us a great show. So, why am I griping to you guys? Because there's been this trend where fans are throwing sex toys on the court of WNBA games and thinking that this is just a funny thing to do. Now, I'm very upset about this because it has been one of those things. Now, it has been 10 days since the first sex toy hit the WNBA court during the Atlanta Dreams game here in Atlanta against the Golden State Valkyries, and that was back on July 29th, I believe. Since then, sex toys were thrown during the last six more games, including Los Angeles, Chicago, Brooklyn, and Phoenix. Now, at first, the memes flew fast and furious. The WNBA's largely LGBTQ plus fan base was quick to claim the prank as being by and for their community, and empathetic for just how this is a quote, queer the culture of the league is. That's a quote. That's not me saying that. Some players even joined in on the joke. Let me tell you something. Because Sydney Colson, an Indiana Fever player, point guard, she tweeted, said, and this is a quote for her, "Sorry, I did not mean to throw that so far, y'all." And Kirsten Bale, guard for Las Vegas Aces, she continues to add on. She says, "Damn, how my shit get there?" Let me tell you something, ladies. And I'm talking to Sydney Colson and Kirsten Bale. And I asked my producers, am I allowed to cuss on this show? Because we try to keep it PG. My producer said, "Go ahead, Kennedy." Let me tell y'all something. This shit ain't funny. Ladies, everything ain't a goddamn joke when it comes down to the WNBA. Sydney Colson and Kirsten Bale, let me tell you something. And I hope they're watching. Let me tell y'all two ladies something. This shit ain't funny because this is why the community of WNBA and NBA, in my opinion, are not valuing the way y'all need to be valued, payment-wise, because you're doing shit like this. Joking about sex toys that are hitting the courts and y'all chiming in on a joke. Let me tell you something. I'm for a good joke or two, right? I'm a jokester too, right? I joke here on this show sometimes. I joke on my other show. I joke with what happened was with me and Evelyn, right? I'm a jokester too. But when it comes down to my precious WNBA season, along with a lot of WNBA fans, and ladies who are not tuned in on this joke because they're trying to remain professional. You two ladies are professional ball players. By the grace of God, I hope y'all get paid more than what y'all are getting paid, because I honestly do agree y'all need to be paid a little bit more than what you're getting paid with. But then you're doing shitty ass jokes like this one, and that's why people look at y'all wrong. Right? Everything don't have to be a joke when it comes down to staying professional in this sport that is sometimes overlooked because it is the Women's National Basketball Association. So unfortunately, sometimes you guys are going to get overlooked. I would say women out there in the world, they get overlooked all the time. And it's unfair, right? It is, but it happens. But then you got players like that who tweet, who chime in on this joke thinking that this shit is so funny, and it's not funny. In my opinion, I don't find this funny. I find it very offensive. I find it harassment. I find it that you guys are disrespecting the brand, in my humble opinion. Right? I think whoever gets to throw a sex toy, a dildo out there on the court should be banned from the stadium or arena, in my humble opinion, because let me tell you, there are little kids that go to the WNBA fans. Let me tell you something, Sydney Colson and Christian Bale, who joked about this. Ladies, you guys have young girls that are aspiring to become a WNBA player one day. You have a lot of college ladies who, if you're in college or high school, even young girls that go to the WNBA to see the inspiration of younger adult professional players play ball and say, hey, ladies can do this too. But then you're joking around that shit around the little girls and the young girls that want to have an inspiration from the WNBA. Quite honestly, if I was the owner of Indiana Fevers, I would suspend Sydney Colson for a 2-game suspension. Christian Bale, I would suspend her too for chiming in on this joke for 2-game suspension, just so that they see that this shit ain't funny. If I was the owner for both those teams, personally. But as the ideas kept coming, it got less and less funny. Duh. It wasn't funny the first time. More players spoke out in anger and frustration, and I'm not a WNBA player, obviously, but I'm frustrated with the ladies too, explaining that the stunts were a distraction from the game and a danger to athletics on the court. I totally agree. I think, again, I've said it, I'll say it again, very disrespectful to the brand for these ladies, these two ladies to be joking. Of course, this is a quote from the Seattle Storm guard, Brittany Sykes. She said, everyone that's out there making wild jokes, laughing on networks and socials, and making cruel comments is weird and whack. I agree. Because Brittany Sykes, again, Seattle Storm's guard, you're representing an organization, a professional organization. That matters. Because let me tell you, what will you be as a WNBA player if you're no longer able to play no more? Who will you be? New York Liberty player Isabel Harrison said on Twitter, X as well, she tweeted out, arena security, hello, please do better. Throwing anything on the court is so dangerous. Yes, it is. Whether it's cups, paper, usually, because I've been to a Hawks game, and I've seen it where a dude, drunk as hell, tossed his cup full of beer because he was mad about the Hawks' income. And I get it, right? The Hawks was losing that game. I get it. I was pissed off too. But that guy was escorted out of State Farm Arena because that's a big no-no. They even said at the beginning of the program to say, disclaimer, do not throw anything on the court if you are a fan that's observing the game. I'm sorry to get on my tangent. I'm sorry to kind of do a tangent part of the show. I just get very frustrated when there are people out there throwing these items out there on a professional court. And people are people. I get that people are crazy. People do a lot of crazy things. I think arena security has to do better when it comes down to tighten up their security, because if it's a sex toy that's very heavy, because look, I don't know too much about sex toys, right? But I heard that some of these sex toys, they make it heavy. Imagine that gets thrown on a WNBA player, knocks her outside the head, and now she's injured from head trauma from that. And she has to go to the hospital, and she's out the rest of the season because of that. And that could have been your star player, right? Again, on Code Podcast, I hate to go on a tangent. That it's not going to be the outlook of the whole show tonight, but I get very upset about that. I get very upset where you have WNBA stars who joke around with people with this, because I as a big fan of the WNBA, I'm not a fan of this. I don't think it's funny. I think it's harassment. It's not hilarious. It's not something that you need to do for the sake of Instagram and likes and TikTok. I think this needs to remain professional. For those two ladies that joked about it, I would have suspended them for 3 games suspension, simply because they're trying to make this thing a joke when it is not, in fact, a joke. Those two ladies have to do better for the WNBA because you're representing a big brand that I said before, and I'll say it again, is often overlooked, and you guys are overappreciated and underpaid, but you got two ladies of a professional team, separate teams, that's doing bullshit like this instead of focusing on their season. They want to do wild, crazy, whack shit like this for the WNBA, and that's why I get upset. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jackson for the latest news.
The early returns from the MLB trade deadline are filtering in. The dog days of August are challenging pitching staffs. The Boston Red Sox are humming. The New York Yankees are stumbling, and the New York Mets might be crumbling. Yes, it's going to be a fun stretch drive. How do the postseason races stand? Let's break down the contenders into playoff tiers. Tier 1, the locks. Milwaukee Brewers. Biggest surprise, Andrew Vaughn has been raking since coming over from the White Sox in a trade in which Chicago was clearing him off its roster. Rhys Hoskins might return from the injured list later this month, but Vaughn has hit so well that Hoskins has likely been Wally Pipped and relegated to part-time DH duty, depending on how often Christian Yelich can play the outfield. Vaughn has, so far, provided some much-needed power, which had been the Brewers' only weakness. Injury to watch. Hard-throwing rookie Jacob Misiorowski is out because of a shin contusion, but should be back soon, and the Brewers probably welcome the break to limit his innings anyway. So keep an eye on Jackson Chourio, who is likely out a couple more weeks because of a strained hamstring. Chourio had been red-hot in July, with an OPS over 1.000 before hitting the IL. Player to watch, Brandon Woodruff. The one-time Brewers ace hadn't pitched since September 2023 before finally returning in July, and has delivered 6 excellent starts with a 2.29 ERA, 45 strikeouts, and just 6 walks. His fastball velocity isn't where it was before his shoulder injury, but Woodruff has been locating where he wants, as batters are hitting .111 against his four-seamer and .156 against his sinker. A playoff rotation with Freddie Peralta, Woodruff, Misiorowski, and Quinn Priester, who has won 10 consecutive decisions, looks like one that could deliver the Brewers their first World Series title. Los Angeles Dodgers. Biggest surprise? Well, there are 2 ways to look at this. The Dodgers are in the bottom half of the majors in ERA, with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, their only starter, who has been in the rotation all season. Sitting in first place, despite those injury issues, can be viewed as a pleasant surprise. Or maybe it's a bad surprise that a team that was a huge favorite to run away with the National West has to fight for the division title. The Dodgers have essentially used a 6-man rotation all season, with pitchers making just 7 starts on 4 days of rest. Yamamoto hasn't started on all 4 days of rest all season. With the Dodgers battling the Padres for the division crown, will manager Dave Roberts go to a 5-man rotation? What about in the postseason, when 4 days of rest is generally the norm if you want to use just your top 4 starters? Injury to watch, just one? While the rotation is slowly getting healthier, Blake Snell is back. Late-game relievers Tanner Scott, elbow, and Kirby Yates, back, are on the IL. Player to watch. With Mookie Betts seemingly mired in season-long mediocrity, the Dodgers will need Freddie Freeman to heat up again. The first baseman was hitting .374 with a 1.078 OPS through May, but then hit .226 with just 2 home runs in June and July. In late July, he said he fixed something in his swing, and he hit .400 with 3 home runs in his first 14 games after that proclamation. If Freeman is back, the offense might be the best in the majors again. Toronto Blue Jays. Biggest surprise, the Blue Jays were 26-28 on May 27th, but have the second-best record in the majors since. And journeyman starter Eric Lauer has been a key reason, after not pitching in the majors in 2024 and finishing the season in Korea. He joined the rotation for good on June 11th and has gone 5-1 with a 3.16 ERA since then, with the Jays winning 9 of his 11 starts. Injury to watch. The Jays signed Anthony Santander to a 5-year, $92.5 million contract after a 44-homer season with the Orioles, but he has been out since May 29th because of a shoulder injury and hit just .179 before that. Getting back a productive Santander would help boost an outfield that has been mix and match all season. Player to watch. The Blue Jays acquired Shane Bieber from Cleveland at the trade deadline, getting a pitcher still rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. He should have 2 more rehab starts before he's ready to join the rotation, and the Blue Jays will be counting on him to be in the playoff rotation. Depending on how Bieber performs, it wouldn't be shocking for him to leapfrog Jose Barrios and Kevin Gausman as the Game 1 starter. Lauer and Max Scherzer will be in that mix, with Chris Bassett hanging around as well. That rotation depth is why the Jays rate as the heavy favorite to win the division, and at the minimum look like a playoff lock. Chicago Cubs. Biggest surprise. Everyone knew about Pete Crow Armstrong's defense, but certainly nobody expected him to hit for this kind of power and turn into an MVP candidate in his first full season. He's doing it despite the highest swing rate in the majors, which gives him one of the worst chase rates. He would have the lowest OBP for an MVP winner. Still, he had his highest monthly batting average, .308, and slugging percentage, .637, in July, although he's slumping in August. Injury to watch. The big one was Justin Steele going down for the season because of Tommy John surgery. Jameson Taylor is still out because of a calf strain. The Cubs acquired Michael Soroka at the deadline to help the rotation, but he lasted 2 innings in his first start before going down because of a sore shoulder, and his availability the rest of the season is unknown. Player to watch. Rookie starter Cade Horton is emerging as a force. He joined the rotation in May and had a 4.80 ERA through his first 2 months, but has allowed no runs in 5 of his past 6 starts, including his past 4 in a row. Coming off an injury-plagued 2024, the Cubs are being very conservative with the 23-year-old's pitch counts, fewer than 90 pitches in his past 4 outings, but he has been efficient enough to give them 5 or 6 innings. Some of Horton's peripheral numbers: SOO strikeout rate, not a ton of swing and miss. Don't necessarily match up with all the zeros, but he's limiting hard contact. With Soroka out, Horton is vital to the Cubs' hopes of running down the Brewers in the NL Central. Philadelphia Phillies. Biggest surprise. Kyle Schwarber hitting a lot of home runs is hardly a surprise. He has reached 43 times. But Schwarber as a potential MVP candidate? That wasn't on anyone's preseason scorecard. Okay, maybe that's still a long shot given that Crow Armstrong's all-around value gives the Cubs outfielder a big edge in WAR, and Shohei Ohtani is now pitching to go with his Schwarber-like offensive numbers. Still, Schwarber looks unstoppable at the plate right now and leads the NL in home runs and RBIs as his OPS inches closer to 1.000. Injury to watch. Aaron Nola has been on the 60-day IL with a stress fracture in his right rib and has made a couple of rehab starts, so he should be returning to the rotation soon. The Phillies haven't really missed him because of their pitching depth, but a healthy Nola will bump Taijuan Walker from the rotation. Plus, he could leap over Jesus Luzardo as the 4th starter in the playoff rotation. Player to watch. Tree Turner hit well for 3 months to begin the season, but went homerless in July, and his OBP dropped way off. At his best, he's an offensive force who hits for average and some power while setting the table for Bryce Harper and Schwarber behind him. He can also have spells when he starts chasing too much and the offense dries up. The Phillies are locked to get in, but they need the best version of Turner down the stretch to hold off the Mets in the NL East. Tier 2 should get in. Detroit Tigers. What they need to do to become a lock. The Tigers seemed like a lock when they held a 14-game lead in the American League Central before the All-Star break while playing like the best team in baseball. Then they lost 12 out of 13 games, and Cleveland got hot. The Guardians are at least close enough to put a little fear in the Tigers. The lineup scuffled in July, but the bullpen still feels like the key here. The Tigers are 19th in the majors in bullpen ERA and 28th in reliever strikeout rate. It's not good when you're ranked with the Nationals and Rockies. They added some reinforcements at the trade deadline, but Kyle Finnegan and Rafael Montero aren't solutions. Injury to watch. The Tigers signed Alex Cobb to a 1-year, $15 million contract in the offseason, but the 37-year-old right-hander has yet to pitch in the majors this season because of hip inflammation. after his first rehab stint was cut short in June. He's trying to get healthy enough to provide a boost to the rotation. The Tigers traded for Charlie Morton and Chris Paddock, but Cobb could be in the same scenario he was with Cleveland last season, when he made just 3 regular season starts but was in the playoff rotation. Player to watch. It has been an odd season for Riley Green, whose strikeout rate is over 32% and whose walk rate has plummeted from last season, 11% to 6%. The home run and RBI numbers are there, although he has been in a deep slump since the All-Star break. Can he be consistent enough to lead the Detroit offense and deliver in crunch time? Or will the better pitchers in the postseason exploit his swing and miss tendencies? San Diego Padres. What they need to do to become a lock. In 2022, the Padres made the biggest splash at the trade deadline, acquiring Juan Soto and Josh Hader and eventually reaching the NLCS. This deadline, General Manager A.J. Preller was again on a mission, trading top prospect Leo DeVries to acquire Athletics closer Mason Miller to strengthen what was already perhaps the game's best bullpen. Preller also filled some holes in the lineup with the additions of Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, and Freddie Fermin. The Padres have the deepest bullpen and a deeper lineup. Will that be enough to cover their lack of power? Next to last in the majors in home runs and middle-of-the-pack rotation, getting Dylan Cease on a roll would be nice? Maybe, but it's clear that to not just lock up that playoff spot, but also chase down the Dodgers in the NL West, Padres manager Mike Shildt will have to ride those bullpen arms. Injury to watch. On Saturday, Michael King made his first start since May 18th after being out with a pinched nerve in his shoulder. If King is at full health, having him and Nick Pivetta lead the rotation would pair nicely with that loaded bullpen. Player to watch. Second-year center fielder Jackson Merrill hasn't replicated his rookie power numbers, and his OBP cratered in July, when he hit .196/.262/.304. The early returns are better this month, and though the Padres upgraded their offensive depth, they need Merrill to be a force. New York Mets. What they need to do to become a lock. It's not so easy to buy your way into the playoffs, is it? The Mets correctly upgraded a struggling bullpen by adding Ryan Helsley, Tyler Rogers, and Gregory Soto, but now it's the offense that is going through some rough times. Despite adding Juan Soto and getting a much better season from Pete Alonso, he has already surpassed last year's RBI total. The Mets are scoring fewer runs per game than in 2024. The Mets were 21-10 at the end of April, with a plus 54 run differential. Since then, they've gone 42-45 with a minus 24 run differential. Soto, Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and Brandon Nimmo have scuffled of late, and Soto has been terrible all season with runners in scoring position, .190/.331/.360. There's too much talent here for the Mets to miss the playoffs. Injury to watch. Tyler Megill, out with an elbow sprain, is the one injured player who could return and help, whether in the rotation or the bullpen. Player to watch. Soto. It's time for him to put the team on his back. Tier 3. Have work to do. Seattle Mariners. How they make the playoffs. Hit better with runners in scoring position. The trade deadline additions of Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez, plus the gradual improvement of rookie Cole Young and the surprising production from Dominic Canzoni, have made this one of the deeper lineups in the league. The Mariners rank 10th in OPS and 2nd in road OPS, but they're just 24th in OPS with runners in scoring position. Injury to watch. Bryce Miller, elbow inflammation, has made 2 rehab starts. He threw 4 scoreless innings in the first outing, but served up 3 home runs in the second. His fastball velocity was sitting at 96. He could be in line for 2 more starts before potentially replacing Logan Evans in the rotation, and giving the Mariners their projected 5-man group for the first time all season. Player to watch. Naylor was acquired for his bat, not his legs, but he is running like Ricky Henderson since joining the M's, swiping 10 bases in his first 13 games. Pretty remarkable for a player who ranks in the 3rd percentile of all players in running speed. He left Thursday's game because of some discomfort after swing, but the Mariners said it's likely just a day-to-day situation. Boston Red Sox. How they make the playoffs. Keep pitching like they have. While going 24-10 since June 30th, the Red Sox have a 3.08 ERA. Garrett Crochet has led the way and is now toe-to-toe with Tarek Skubal in the AL Cy Young race. But Lucas Giolito is also 7-1 with a 2.43 RA over his past 11 starts, and Brian Bello is 5-2 with a 2.42 ERA since July 1st. Injury to watch. Though he's not on the IL, closer Aroldis Chapman left a game in late July because of back tightness. He has allowed one earned run over his past 32 innings, so keeping the 37-year-old healthy is vital. Player to watch. Rookie outfielder Roman Anthony just signed an 8-year, $130 million extension. Escalators could bring the total value up to $230 million. Though the 21-year-old has shown precocious plate discipline that suggests the bright future the Red Sox are banking on, his home run power hasn't shown up yet, in part because he's still hitting a lot of balls on the ground. He's already good, but maybe he'll be great down the stretch. Houston Astros. How they make the playoffs. Have Carlos Correa turned back the clock? In a shocking trade deadline deal, the Astros reacquired their former shortstop to play third base, with Isaac Paredes injured. Correa was having a poor season with the Twins, with the worst OPS of his career, although he has hit better in his first week with the Astros. With an offense that has been forced to play a lot of AAA fillers because of injuries, Correa could provide a huge boost. Injury to watch. Will Yordan Alvarez make it back? The superstar DH has played just 29 games, none since May 2nd, because of a right-hand fracture. He has been taking batting practice in Florida. Meanwhile, Paredes remains out because of a serious hamstring injury, choosing rehab with the hope of returning this season. Center fielder Jake Myers is still rehabbing a calf strain. Player to watch. The Astros have struggled to fill the rotation behind Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez because of the injuries. Spencer Arrighetti just returned from the 60-day IL and allowed 11 hits and 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings. He had a strong second half last season, so the Astros would love for him to step up as a strong no. 3 starter. New York Yankees. How they make the playoffs. Hit better, field better, pitch better, run the bases better. The Yankees are 20-31 since June 13th, losing 10 games in the standings and dropping from first to third place. It has been a comedy of errors at times, but, at the minimum, they need the bullpen to figure things out. The Yankees rank in the bottom third of the majors in bullpen win probability added. Maybe David Bednar's 5-out save the other day will at least settle down the closer situation, as he's likely to take over that role from Devin Williams. Injury to watch. Aaron Judge is back from a flexor strain in his elbow that sidelined him for 10 days, although still serving only as a DH. It shouldn't affect his offense, but the Yankees would love to get him back on the field defensively so they can use Giancarlo Stanton, who had been hot, as the DH. Stanton is unplayable on defense, so he's limited to pinch-hitting duties, with Judge occupying the DH spot. Player to watch. If Judge is producing, the Yankees will score. The bullpen has the talent to get hot down the stretch. But suddenly, the rotation has some concerns as well. Carlos Rodon has walked 15 over his past 20 innings across 4 starts. Even going back to June 8th, his ERA is just 4.50 after a great first 2 months. Is he a reliable no? 2 starter behind Max Fried? Tier 4, the long shots. Texas Rangers. How do they get in? Continue to ride Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom in the rotation, figure out the closer situation, and have the offense keep hitting like it did in July, when it was better than it had been all season. Journeyman Robert Garcia had been closing of late, but he gave up 2 critical home runs to the Mariners last weekend, and now that role is once again in flux. The Rangers are done with the Mariners, but their 6 remaining games against the Astros loom large. How do they get in? The Guardians looked out of it when they were 40-48 in early July, with the Tigers seemingly running away with the division. But Cleveland has gone 21-8 since then, and the upcoming schedule is pretty soft as they finish this series against the White Sox and then play the Marlins, Braves, and Diamondbacks. 6 games against the Tigers in September means the AL Central might not be decided until then. The offense, hitting just .224 through July 6th, has averaged more than 5 runs per game since then, with a lot more of the timely hitting we saw last season. It helps that Jose Ramirez got hot right at that time. Tier 5, the really long shots. Cincinnati Reds. How do they get in? They're the 7th team in a race where only 6 teams get in, so they'll need to get some help, which the Mets seem to be accommodating right now. But the Reds also need to get the rotation back in a groove. After posting a 3.69 ERA in April and 3.17 in May, the rotation ERA rose to 4.52 in June and 4.16 in July. But there are some positive developments. Hunter Green is about ready to return from his rehab, and Zach Little had a terrific first start with the Reds after coming over in a deadline deal, allowing 1 run in 7 innings with a season-high 15 swing and misses. San Francisco Giants. How do they get in? If the Reds need a little help, the Giants will need a lot of help. They blew up the bullpen, which had been the strength of the team, by trading Tyler Rogers and Camilo Doval, so we'll see whether they have enough depth there. Same with the rotation. With Landon Roop injured and Hayden Birdsong demoted to the minors, the rotation features recent call-ups Carson Weisenhunt and Kai-Wei Tung. Justin Verlander has reeled off 3 good starts in a row, although each was limited to 5 innings. They'll need those 3 to pitch well behind Logan Webb and Robbie Ray. Kansas City Royals. How do they get in? In the American League, anything still feels possible. Just look at last year, when the Tigers were already buried at this point, only to reel off an improbable run to the postseason. The Royals would need to leap past 3 teams to get a wild card, but if the Yankees keep fading, all it would take is a little hot streak to jump past Texas and Cleveland as well. The Royals will have to score more runs, but the offense had its best month, and it has had a few big offensive games in August. Bobby Witt Jr. has had another strong season, but what if he really heats up like he did last July and August?
So I'm back on camera, guys. I did calm down towards a little bit, and I do say to a lot of people, I was very pissed off, but I wasn't very tremendously upset. You know, things happen and I move on. And as a sports analyst and a broadcaster, you know, we, T and Jackson, and correspondents that's corresponding on our show too, we all know that when we formed the Code Podcast, I do say to a lot of people, to Terry, Jackson, Monica and Simone, if y'all heard last week, Monica and Simone, they're back on the mics, right? I tell everybody in their correspondent, when they correspond in their segment on the show, is to not be afraid to speak your mind. We're not, it would be great if we were big like First Take or Pat McAfee or The Facility or those big sports shows, but we're not, right? We are unfiltered. We're able to say whatever we want because we are an independent show. So I just get very upset when things like this is crossing my desk, and as correspondents, we get paid to not only talk to you guys, but we're performing a show, and I like to perform my own opinion and how I feel on certain things, and that's how I felt about the sex toy scandal with WNBA. Nevertheless, another scandal, well, not a scandal. Let's talk about Karrion Kross, right? So Karrion Kross, WWE, can't wait, Raw's tonight. I'm watching it tonight. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode of K.L.P. Aftermath Podcast, because I'll do my full Raw review as always. Now, a level of internal skepticism remains about whether Karrion Kross is truly a free agent after seemingly his WWE contract expired. On the newest episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer called Karrion's situation a weird one and said that the 3:11 mark on the video below, there's a video that's on the Bleacher Report you guys can watch, that the belief in WWE that he's gonna be back. Now, I honestly do think that as of late, it seems like Karrion Kross has, renewed his contract with WWE. There has been a lot of speculations. There's been a lot of chants. If you guys know, you know. It's been out there on social media where Triple H has joined the team on the post-show of SummerSlam. And the fans were saying, we want Kross. I heard it vividly. I know what the fans want, and I know what the fans said. The fans said that they want Kross. But they interpreted that, the fans said they want Brock. Brock did his SummerSlam return. We'll see how that goes within the season, right? I I honestly do think Karrion Kross, besides his weird intro, I don't really like his entrance of when he gets into the ring. I think it's a little too much. In my opinion, Karrion Kross is a fantastic wrestler and superstar. His character, he's selling it really well as the kooky character, is bringing the evil, the devil evilness out of superstars out there. It is sad to say, and I saw it on Scarlett's Instagram, that she did a post about her leaving, her absence with WWE. It is very, very sad to see that happen because there are a couple, but hey, I don't judge WWE too much on their decision. There is their decision. I think WWE, along with everything else they've had, it's a business decision. Now, last week I talked about, while we're on the train of WWE, I talked about how good their ESPN deal was going to be. Now, I'm a little skeptical about the ESPN deal because now Nick Khan has come out and said, hey, with ESPN's restructure of their subscription models, I don't think I want to pay $30 a month to watch WWE. I don't think I'm going to want to do that. Simply because we're already paying a lot in other subscriptions. I don't think I can get there with $30 a month just to watch it PLE. I don't think I can get there. We'll see how that development goes for sure. That's just something that's been happening and it's been on speculation. It's been out there. It's been the word out there. So it's sad to see that, Scarlett's leaving with the WWE decision. Again, it's a business decision. It's their decision. I can't really do too much but to do that. Now, do I think that WWE is pulling an R-Truth release? Remember when R-Truth back in June, he got released, but it was all part of a work and he had to rebrand himself. So, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be a thing there. I think that this is going to be very, very hectic on the couple there. Now, Kross posted an hour-long video on Sunday announcing the expiration of his WWE contract. He outlined his desire to stay with the company, and he didn't think was reciprocated. He's been on Twitter, and let me tell you something. As big as WWE is, because I still would love to work for him on the camera production side one day. I would love to. I think superstars are starting to understand that their voice tends to matter. And it's scary, right? Because you could be a superstar for WWE, but you got to be careful what you say, right? Because we don't know if it's going to bite you in the ass later, right? CM Punk, I'll take CM Punk for an example. CM Punk pipe bomb. He said whatever he wanted to say. He had a lot of gripe with Triple H. At that time, he was young. He understood that, hey, I got a voice. My voice matters, right? That was CM Punk back in the day. Part of it was the gimmick, part of it was the segment, part of it sold really well. But it led him to be released from WWE, right? For 13 years. Took some time off. He did UFC, which UFC was a cluster dumpster fire for CM Punk for UFC. The very, very short UFC career. Then he went to AEW, right? And that was the thing right there. Now, do you see CM Punk saying, hey, I got a voice in today's Climax? You don't, right? CM Punk, he's realizing he's older, right? He's married to AJ Lee, right? He got a dog. He has full adult responsibilities that he can't fumble the bag with right now, right? Honestly, I think CM Punk should have hold on to the belt at SummerSlam, right? They said, hey, you're not going to hold on to the belt. You're going to have it for 5 minutes. CM Punk's going to come in and cash in. CM Punk's not going to say, no, I don't like that idea. He's not going to say that now. He's going to say, okay, business is business. I get it. You got me on the main stage. I'm making some money. Business is business. It's nothing personal. So I bring up CM Punk as an example because I see this a little bit with Karrion Kross where, okay, you've got the following, you've got the outlook, but you got to be careful because you don't know if that's going to work out in your favor or will that end up screwing you out of a contract, right? If it screws you out of a contract, you get blacklisted for WWE and potential AEW, right? That's it. Because like it or not, and I will say this, that AEW is growing to great heights. I will say that. I think AEW is trying to catch up to WWE. I don't think there's nothing quite like WWE on the scale of business and networks and celebrity status and the things that come with WWE. I don't think nobody can beat WWE. WWE still remains the top World Wrestling Entertainment, and this is, I know that's their name, the official name, but they're on top of wrestling. When you think about wrestling as a whole, you think about WWE. You don't think about AEW as much. I would say AEW is in that conversation for sure. They are. But when you say wrestling, oh, WWE. That's the first thing that comes to mind. So since that, we saw today before going live tonight, we did see that, people ousted. People had their opinions. People had a lot to say. People had a lot of words of tweets and Instagram posts and TikToks. And it's hurt because now, as of right now, the recording in tonight's show, Karrion Kross, dude, he does have a new contract of some sort. We don't know what that looks like quite just yet. Maybe we'll find out tonight on Raw. But he got a contract of some sort. Now with Scarlett, that's it. They're not negotiating with Scarlett's contract, which makes sense because Scarlett really, as her character is a character, she is what in WWE terms we call, she was the valet. She was the valet of Karrion Kross. So they don't want to keep paying her salary just to be a valet, right? Could she get in the ring? Yes, she's done it before. But her gimmick and her storyline is her being the valet, right? And WWE doesn't want to waste ad dollars on a valet superstar that's just valeting your superstar when they'd rather send the money for actual people that's performing in the ring. Like I say, we will continue to follow this story for sure. I can't wait to see what happens when it comes down to the Karrion Kross situation. Like I said, I think Karrion Kross should not be let go from WWE quite just yet. He still have a lot to prove. And he's a good character. He can cut a good promo. And he's sadistic. And that's the storyline. And it works. So I would just say to WWE, don't cut them. Don't cut them that quickly, right? Because it's going to be something that is going to be very, very impactful later on down the line, is what I say. But we'll wait and see what happens. We'll wait to see what happens for sure. That's going to wrap it up here on the Bro Code Podcast. We hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode. Again, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're new to the channel on YouTube, Facebook Watch, or even Spotify for video, subscribe to us so that way you don't miss out the latest upload for Bro Code Podcast ATL. And please, guys, if you're listening to us, share with your friends, letting you guys know that we were live tonight. To Terry, Jackson, Simone, Monica, and all of our other correspondents here on the Bro Code Podcast, I thank you guys for so much for helping grow this show. I think this show is going to be very, very impactful for a lot of sports fans out there, and I can't wait to just upload more episodes like this because it is going to be the new direction we're going in for the show as well. Ladies and gentlemen, tune in tomorrow. K.L.P. Aftermath podcast tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. A brand new episode for the week, and we hope that everyone has a very, very productive and relaxing week as we head towards the weekend this week. Again, this has been the Bro Code Podcast ATL, presented by Our Heart Media and K.L.P. Entertainment. Until then, have a great night, guys, and we'll see y'all in the next episode. Peace.
Welcome to the Bro Code Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, because this is where the real talk begins. Cause this is where the real talk begins. Gear up. Cause this is where the real talk begins. Gear up.